heavy exit ramps at Ashland and Damon as well. Inbound delays on the Ike start at Manheim. It's 32 minutes from 390 to downtown. Inbound Kennedy, 30 minutes O'Hare to downtown. 18 from Montrose, 15 in the Express. Outbound 26 minutes downtown to the airport. Stevenson 33 minutes, 355 to Lakeshore Drive. Bryan is 18 minutes from 95th to downtown. Westmont, there's a crash on 83 at Ogden. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next in our AM 560 Weather Center. Our forecast, sunny, high near 94 inland, near 90 lakeside. Lows in the mid-70s and very sticky overnight. Hot and humid tomorrow. 20% chance of a shower or thunderstorm. Wednesday, sunny in the mid-90s. Thursday in the 90s. Friday, we start to cool down, and a big cool down for Saturday and Sunday. 77 right now. Next news coming up at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, and your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy updating the situation in Kenosha that Jacob Blake, who was shot by police, which sparked a night of rioting and looting yesterday in Kenosha. Jacob Blake apparently has a history of assaulting police. The same Jacob Blake was a man taken into custody when he refused to leave a bar after he pulled a gun. He also has past charges for domestic abuse and a sex crime. So maybe Governor Evers would have wanted to hold his powder instead, but he didn't, before understanding exactly what the police understood about Jacob Blake. Perhaps since this was a domestic call, this wasn't the first time that they had been called to Mr. Blake's home or the home of some relative. It wasn't their first interaction with Mr. Blake, so perhaps they knew something about Mr. Blake that doesn't readily come across in a 30-second video.
And the video shows him walking to his car. His 3 boys are inside. You don't see that, but that's what the family said. His 3 sons were in the car. And the officer tries to grab his shirt to pull him out of the driver's side, and that's when 7 shots were fired.
And the point here is not to exonerate the police officer who opened fire on him as he reached in his car. I don't know. This isn't a defense of the police. It's a defense of fact-gathering. And it seems like Governor Evers and certainly those who use the occasion to destroy other people's property are not so interested. So I guess, again, we come back to the same position as we're on day 1 of the RNC. This is what they want. You see it play out on your TV screen as Kenosha has covered. What do you want? Is that the kind of country you want to live in? Because it happened in Denver and Portland and Minneapolis as well as Kenosha over the weekend. President Trump was addressing and previewing what the convention will offer. He sat down with Steve Hilton from Fox News over the weekend, and he explained what the RNC message will be, the overarching message.
Our country has unbelievable potential. We're going to have the strongest economy we've ever had next year. We're going to do additional tax cuts as opposed to massive tax increases, which is going to lead us into a depression, what they want to do. What they want to do will lead us into a depression. 401k stocks, everything's going to go right down the tubes. We're doing additional tax cuts. We are going to have one of the best economies next year, and within 2 years, we'll have the greatest economy we've ever had. Better even than prior to the China virus coming in. We have tremendous potential in this country.
For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Curt Mills, senior reporter at the American Conservative, AmericanConservative.com. Curt, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Thanks.
Good morning. So, unsurprisingly, the president is promoting an aspirational message, at least in part, because he understands that you have to tell people where you're going to take them and how you're going to get there to some extent, although the Democrats didn't do much of that last week. And also suggested, unsurprisingly, that, look, you still have to address some of the false stories that were told about the president and the party, so it'll be a combination. And it begins tonight with some headliners, particularly against the backdrop of the violence again this weekend around the country. Tim Scott, who is the author of legislation to reform the police, as well as some candidates in urban centers that are making a bit of a splash, at least in GOP circles, like Kim Klacik in Baltimore. So the beginning of a Republican response on the topic of law and order plus racial justice.
Right, yeah. I mean, it appears like all the issues that are percolating right now, that none of this is headed to any kind of conclusive resolution until November, and I think we're going to see. Yeah, I mean, Trump has obviously resumed White House press conferences, and he's addressed the country multiple times since the crisis started, either the corona crisis in March and the George Floyd crisis in June. But this will be the most prime time audience that Trump gets to, first address, a pretty divisive and controversial presidency, say what you will about it. And then second, the biggest 6 months that I've lived through. And so, it's prime time.
And with the DNC, everything seemed to be in the can, meaning it was pre-recorded. Michelle Obama got the death statistics wrong for COVID. She was off by 20,000. Never even mentioned Kamala Harris because everything was pre-recorded. What can we expect from the RNC, and how will it be different?
Yeah, we've seen this oscillate a lot. Of course, Trump was trying to do a in-person convention for a lot longer than the Democrats did. The Democrats threw in the towel on it in late June, and Trump moved it from Charlotte to Jacksonville, and then gave the whole thing a kibosh by, I believe, late July. You're seeing a sort of slight pullback on that now. That they're officially doing, some of the Trump addresses, or I think all the Trump addresses from the White House, and that I think, COVID cases, where the impression is that COVID cases are not as spiking as much as they were 2 weeks ago, has all created this sort of climate for Trump to have something of an audience at the White House and to do it like that. And then additionally, there's more activity going on in Charlotte, North Carolina than there was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin last week.
But isn't he going to Charlotte? I heard he's going to make a surprise appearance.
It's rumored.
And so here's what the Dems are doing to try to run interference on day one. 24 former GOP members of Congress are throwing their support behind a Republicans for Biden effort being launched today by the Biden campaign, led by former Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, and including such stalwart Republicans as
James Comey, right?
Members of Congress,
Oh.
as Obama's transportation secretary, our very own Ray LaHood from Illinois. I mean, this seems to me a perfect setup, not for Biden, but for Trump to say, just remember, I'm the guy who said I'm going to D.C. to drain the swamp. And that includes some Republicans. And so I've upset some Republicans who are more interested in status and their checkbook than they are in right-sizing the federal government and changing its attitude so that it is concerned about the interests of people who play by the rules in this country. And so if that means that Jeff Flake and some of his friends don't like me and are going to go support Biden, then fare thee well. I couldn't care less because I didn't come here for them. I came here for you. It seems like it sets up perfectly for that.
Yeah, we'll see what he does. My personal view is that Trump was most effective as a politician in the primaries of 2016 when he sort of laid out a withering criticism of the Bush-style republicanism in the Bush years. I don't think, from a pure strategy standpoint, I'm not sure Republicans should, exalt in the fact that a lot of these congressmen that represented, sort of suburban or, now pretty heavily Democratic districts, just 10 years ago, I think those are the kind of districts in the future that the party will need to win back if it wants to have a national profile.
Yeah.
But it's pretty rich that these apparatchiks of the Bush era are suddenly wringing their hands about morality.
Well, and also too, these are the sorts of Republicans, and I know them well in Illinois, specifically Ray LaHood, who now has been replaced by his son, who's actually a real conservative.
I didn't know that.
And he's holding that seat in Central Illinois. But
Right.
but here's the thing. Those are the kind of Republicans that lost the suburbs in the first place. The idea that Trump lost the suburbs, no. In these swing states, which we were losing before Trump won them in 2016, like Pennsylvania, and Michigan and Wisconsin. These are the sorts of Vichy Republicans, the surrender first Republicans that were losing these districts, that we're watching these districts atrophy right underneath them, because we've seen it happen in Chicagoland suburbs too, where now you have a socialist like Sean Casten in the same seat that was held by Henry Hyde, for goodness sakes. So I think actually this is something to celebrate, because these are the sorts of enemies inside your perimeter that do to the party what the left cannot.
Yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you comb the list, it's just a bunch of people from 10 years ago.
Yeah. Right, sure, exactly.
Well, and in regards to Biden, I mean, can you win an election by staying home, by not traveling to battleground states or at all? Because it shows such weakness and fear in a lot of Americans' minds that I think that will help Trump, don't you?
It definitely didn't hurt Biden from March to August. And there's definitely anxiety on Biden's team about Biden contracting coronavirus. They definitely don't want that to happen. That being said, I think the campaign, pre and post convention, this is the final leg. When you have the convention, the nomination, then you're getting into debates. That's the real thing. Do Americans, do the people that Biden needs, so basically the Democratic base plus enough independents, will they tolerate an extremely cautious campaign, one that is saying, well, we're not doing a lot of campaign events because we're trying to keep the candidates safe? I mean, I think the precedent here is William McKinley's front porch campaign in 1896, where his opponent traveled the country and campaigned like mad, Williams Jennings Bryan, and McKinley killed him. And so, it's not always good to talk more, but it's unclear. And everyone has a supercomputer in their pocket. Everyone knows that Biden is kind of hiding. And so, is the American electorate open to that? And I think the answer is unresolved.
Yeah, unresolved. But some other things that are unresolved is whether Biden can hold his modest lead, particularly when you just look at battleground states. It's basically a dead heat. When he has to defend positions he's just recently adopted in support of the Green New Deal, in support of Medicare for All. Our former Chicago mayor, Rahm Emanuel, saying that the two things that Biden should jettison are Medicare for All and the Green New Deal, but that's obviously not going to happen.
I don't think he's quite backed Medicare for All or the Green New Deal. I think he's kind of played it both ways. I think the official policy is more moderate than that, but he's also not repudiating those ideas either.
Right, and so now he's got to defend them on a stage where Trump is going to say to him, 3 times, he's going to say, this guy is for taking away private health insurance, and this guy is for basically eliminating the energy sector that drives our economy. And Biden's going to have to defend himself. Especially as the race gets close, whether he stays in his basement or not, he's got to perform on that debate stage. And I'm not talking about his mental acuity. I'm talking about his ability to defend these positions that are so far afield from where sort of the center of America is.
Yeah, it's an interesting race. If you watched the convention last week, Biden is clearly a Democrat from another era. Just more moderate, more male, more white, old, and the convention underneath him, from the vice president on down, was very, much younger and way more identity politics preoccupied. And so it's a question: are people going to vote for Biden the man and sort of like hope that he is more moderate, like you would think, or is there going to be, basically everybody knows he's a Trojan horse or something that's decidedly more radical.
Well, he didn't sound moderate in that 2020 interview last night. He said, if the flu and coronavirus combine and the numbers go up, he's going to shut everything down.
Yeah,
and it's so easy for politicians and for Hollywood elites to be like, yeah, because they're not affected by it because they have money or they have power. Where all of us that would be named non-essential, that would destroy us.
Yeah, I don't favor another lockdown. But I would say, it's just like for people who pay attention to this stuff a lot less than us, I think the danger, which I've always thought that Biden was the worst draw for Trump in this campaign, not that Trump can't win, but it's just like, people kind of, it's old Joe, whatever, just a sort of different personality than Clinton. So I don't think they can just, I think for a while, especially before they fired the campaign manager, Brad Parscale, they thought they could just rerun the Clinton playbook on Biden, and then Hunter Biden was like the new Bill Clinton. It doesn't work. He's not nearly as personally unpopular.
I wanted to, speaking of personality, Trump was asked about that by Steve Hilton on that Fox News sit down. And this is what he said about his personality, attitude, approach.
First of all, I understand that 100%, but I haven't been treated fairly. I was investigated by a phony deal on Russia. It was a phony deal. I had nothing to do with Russia. No phone calls, no nothing. I had nothing to do with it. And you had to fight that. Then they had a phone call of congratulations to Ukraine. I got impeached. I had to fight that. I have to fight back. If I don't fight back strong, I wouldn't be sitting here right now talking to you. So it's not like, gee, I'd like it to be calm too. But one thing, I wouldn't have gotten all of these things. I can give you a list that's 4 pages long. Right to try, all of the medical things we've done, even the vaccines. We're almost going to have a vaccine. Somebody else would have taken years to get it. If I had a different attitude, that list would be 1/10 as long as it is.
Interesting.
No, what do you say, Curt? If he had a different attitude, he wouldn't have accomplished as much.
Yeah, I mean, he's 74 years old. I mean, he's Donald Trump. He's one of kind, and I don't think he should change it up now.
It would be right. It would be obviously transparent, but and weird. But here's the thing: he started this a few weeks ago, and he sort of did it there with Hilton, which I think actually is effective. To say, look, I know I rub some people the wrong way. I get, you might not like every tweet. I get that some people don't like me because of my personality. So judge me based on what I'm doing and what I'm proposing we do on these, all these buckets of issues that impact your quality of life. I think that's a pretty effective pivot for him to minimize the, personality problem that he has with the electorate.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think if he just makes it about him, it's just going it's not clear that 55% of Americans like him, the guy. I think, in fact, it's a failing interpretation of his own run. I think it's because he's kind of a jerk that a lot of people voted for him because of their frustration with the system. And so I think it's very important that they run an issues-based campaign. I think Trump is the president because he identified all of these issues that were not being harped upon and they were being neglected. And, my concern for him politically in, July before they changed up on the campaign is that it was just obsessed with the personalities of Biden versus Trump. And I think that's not as clean a roadmap for victory.
He is Curt Mills, senior reporter at The American Conservative, theamericanconservative.com. Curt, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Honey, what are we going to do with your grandparents' old coins and jewelry?
I'm pretty sure they're worth some money.
You've been saying that for years.
Okay, how about PGS Gold and Coin? They're the best when it comes to selling family valuables.
And you know this because...
PGS, when it comes to your valuables, they're the best.
Isn't that the place Jeff sold his grandmother's jewelry when she passed?
Yep, he checked out pgsgoldandcoin.com and found tons of positive reviews. He was blown away by how much he got. Do you?